Thank you for joining ACTI's NVR3 Advanced webinar. All of these webinars are recorded and put on our website within the week. You can just go to www.acti.com, click on video clips here, search for the word webinar, click on the magnifying glass, and you'll be able to see a list of all the webinars that we've already done, and you'll be able to see this one in about a week. So this is the live view of the NVR3, which most of you should already be familiar with. So let's go ahead and talk about some of the more advanced functions on the live view. So first off, we have the eMaps, which is available in the Enterprise and Corporate editions. So you'll see on the live view page here, we have a JPEG image. And this is very easy to set up and to use. Essentially, it gives you shortcuts between your different views and your cameras. This is especially helpful when you get a lot of views, a lot of cameras. It starts getting difficult to remember the names and scroll through, especially if there's something you need to take a look at immediately. So what's nice about it is you can actually double-click on any of the camera images, and it will automatically show you a live view of what is going on at that camera. And if you need to go ahead and address that immediately or take another look at it, you can click and drag that camera out onto the screen, double click, and you can go ahead and make it the full view. And once you're done, you can double click again and it will go right back. And once you're done, just double click on the camera again and we'll leave the live view page for you. So if you decide that that is something that you need to take a look at, you can go ahead and click on the shortcut for that location, and we'll automatically jump over to that location where you can see various cameras around it, etc. And if you have another eMap there and with another shortcut, you can go right back to your original control center view. So to set this up, all you have to do, you can either create a new view or go ahead and edit the one that you already have. You can edit the view. And if you look on the available channels, you'll see that when you scroll over, there are various buttons here, one of them being the creating a map. So you can go ahead and upload the pictures that you already uploaded before, or you can create a brand new one. And once you do, what you can do is you can click and drag your cameras out onto the screen, or you can also click and drag your views out onto the screen. And to get rid of them, you just click the red X. So you'll see this little shadow here around the camera. This is not to scale, but it is just a way for you to know which direction that this camera is looking in. And after you're done, you can just hit apply. So it's a very simple way to set up that eMap. So something else that you can do on the live view page is you can actually embed various websites. So this is available only on the corporate edition of the NVR3. So if you go ahead and click on this button here, you'll see that you can create a web. So you can go ahead and type in the URL address. So we can go ahead and put ACTI's, for example. We can save it, and you'll see that it'll go ahead and load the web page. So this web page is very much usable. You can click and drag, you can click on the various links to it and go ahead and use the web page. So this might be the web page of the end user. It might be even a web page to PDF instructions, for example, of what to do in emergencies, emergency contact information, chain of command, etc. So there's various things that you can go ahead and feel free to embed, but it is available only in the corporate edition. Another functionality that you can go ahead and use in the live view page is what we call our visual tracking. So if you take a look at the bottom left corner here in the E24 camera, you'll see that there are these yellow boxes on the live view page. So this is part of the visual tracking. This is especially helpful if you are trying to jump in between adjacent cameras. Because a lot of the times, even though you might have cameras right next to each other, they might not actually be in the same view. Some of them are outdoors, some of them are indoors, maybe that's how you split up the view, etc. So this visual tracking can help you be shortcuts to seeing around corners, seeing in between inside, outside buildings, etc. And it's very easy to set up as well. So for example, let's say I want to be able to see if someone is entering our building. I know that our entrance is right over here. If I had a shortcut to that visual tracking, I can just click within the box and it will automatically bring me over to the door and I can follow the event in real time. If I have another shortcut at that door, I can click on that door and follow the same event as well. So especially if you see something in real time, it's much better than trying to scroll through all the cameras here. Actually, if somebody forgot to set up something in terms of having a camera out onto the live view screen, it's better than trying to click and drag real quick, etc. Again, you could use it on your eMap, for example, clicking on one of the cameras to see a shortcut view. Visual tracking is a great way in order to just see around the corner or between adjacent cameras. So to set this up, all you have to do is go into the settings of the camera. So if we click on our camera here, and you'll see that there is visual tracking option under the basic tab. So when you click on visual tracking, you can go ahead and add various regions. So when you click add, you just select which camera corresponds to that particular region. If you don't see this visual tracking option on, one possibility is that you do need to make sure that if you are using a PTZ camera, that you come into the PTZ option here and make sure that you've disabled the PTZ. So right now the PTZ is disabled, so visual tracking is available, but if my PTZ is on, it is not going to allow me to set up that visual tracking for this particular camera. So you'll see now if I go back, the visual tracking is grayed out. So I can still, for example, use visual tracking on to that camera. So for example, if I click on the shortcut here, but you'll see that on the actual PTZ camera, the visual tracking option is no longer available because the PTZ is enabled. So make sure you double check those settings before you set up that visual tracking. Another option that is available on the NVR3 corporate is our video push functionality. So basically what happens is as long as you have registered your phone, your mobile client, into the NVR, and it does take up an ACTI channel license, but once you have it registered within the NVR, you can basically use your phone as a camera. So this is particularly useful for security guards, patrols, even teachers who need to be able to record incidents automatically, even, for example, hall monitors. So if you go ahead and all you have to do is add the site into your mobile client, and after you do, you come into the setup here, click add, and then add the mobile. So once you have it added into your phone, you will see your phone show up here, and you can go ahead and check mark it, click accept, and you will basically have a channel here for you to use. You can always edit the name here as well. So essentially what can be done is I can go ahead and show you guys from my phone. All I did was log into my mobile client, log into the site, then where it shows me all my views, I go ahead and click on the video push function, and I can go ahead and click record. So now as you can see, you guys are seeing the keyboard, the picture, for example, and so right now it's just recording everything on the webinar in real time. And after I'm done, I can click stop, and that will be the end of that particular video push. And later on, I can go into the playback, come into the demo video push channel, and you'll see that you can review the footage. So it acts as a temporary camera for any incident that needs to be immediately recorded. Let's go ahead and go into the setup. So a lot of times you're working with customers who have very limited bandwidth, right? So previous basic webinars, we've already talked about how it's very important to make sure that you have it on the correct bitrate mode depending on your camera model. Leave it on variable bitrate as long as you have the maximum bitrate setting available, and if you don't, to leave it on constant and to make sure that your bitrate is a comparable value to your resolution. So what else you can do is use the dual streaming function of the cameras. So to set that up, you want to make sure that you already set up your Media 1, Media 2 under the Video tab. You'll see that under Media 2, we always cap it off at a lower resolution, a lower quality. This is particularly useful for people who are trying to view the cameras on their mobile clients. Maybe it's not loading as quickly, or they're having bandwidth issues, or they want their live view to load faster, etc. Once you set up this Media 1 and Media 2, you want to come back into this Basic tab, and you can set up this dual streaming here. So that you can change it so that the default live view stream is stream 2, and then the enlarged live view stream or the recording stream is stream 1. So by default, everything is stream 1. So live view will show you stream 1. If you double click on the view, it will be stream 1, and recording will always be stream 1. But if you do have bandwidth issues, you want it to load faster, etc., you can always change that live view stream to stream 2. Okay? Because when you have multiple cameras out on the live view page, you really cannot tell the difference between stream 1 and stream 2. Maybe right now, since we only have one camera and it is a little bit larger here in the settings, you might be able to tell between stream 1 and stream 2. But most of the time people cannot, especially when there's so many cameras going on. So there's really no point in using that bandwidth when you don't, it's not making that big of a difference in terms of pixels and quality, etc. So as long as you have that dual streaming set up, you'll see that when I have my camera out on the live view page, you'll see this icon here at the top, Media 2. So right now it is showing me Stream 2. But as long as I have that dual streaming set up, then if I double click, it will automatically go over to Stream 1. Okay, if I make this the only view, okay, it will be Stream 2, and I can always toggle it to Stream 1, for example. So that is the dual streaming function that can really help minimize the amount of bandwidth that you're using without dropping in quality. Let's go ahead and go into the Event tab. So when you do set up these events, you always want to make sure that under the Schedule tab, you do have these diagonal lines on. So this is for event handling. It means that the camera is allowed to listen to the events that you have set up during those particular times. So under the event, we have events for your local server, we have events for your camera. So under the local server, I usually do recommend that you set up events for if a disk is suddenly not found. So for example, one of your recording drives may have gone bad. So you can go ahead and double click on this response section, and you can have various responses, maybe sending an email, having a particular pop-up. You can have the NVR beep, digital outputs, notifications, etc. Same thing with maybe if your schedule services stop for whatever reason, the NVR stops recording when it's not supposed to. You can also set up responses for that. So under your camera, we do have various events for various things within the camera. So for example, if there's motion detection in regions 1, 2, or 3 when there's not supposed to at a certain time, for example, and there's not too much noise that would be false triggering the camera, you can go ahead and set up this motion detection response. So you can send snapshots, you can send email with snapshots, you can have a PTZ camera go to a particular spot. There's a lot more options for what to focus on, not only pop-ups, but hot spotting, switching the views, etc. So there's many various things that you can do. So with this hotspot, what it will do is it will basically, there's one channel on the layout that is going to be considered your hotspot. It will automatically put that camera in that spot for a certain amount of time, and that way you'll be able to see the actual event. You can also have the map pop up on, for example, if you have NVR3 corporate, you can have Google Maps pop up with that camera, with the location, etc., for a certain amount of time. If a camera comes with embedded analytics, then you'll also be able to do various responses to that camera. So for example, let's see. Maybe right now, yeah, so it looks like the cameras I have here don't have those options, but I can show you that in a little bit. So I'll show you how to set up those analytics within the NVR. So another advanced option that you can use is called the speed up recording. So for example, here in your schedule, you can have it recording full time, right? Or you can have it recording based on events. So your events might be based on motion, right? But for event speed up, what you can do is it's kind of a compromise between the two. So if you come into the Devices tab, come into your camera, come into your Video tab, you'll see that there's an option here to set the frame rate for event recording mode, meaning when there are no events going on, there's no motion, there's no digital input, etc., it will only record full time at 1 frame per second. And if there is an event, it will speed up the frame rate to what you've set it to here. So basically right now on this camera, if there are no events going on, it's recording at 1 frame per second. If an event occurs, it will start recording at 30 frames per second. So that's event speed up recording. You want to leave your schedule on event recording and set it up here within each camera. There are also specific storage options available through the NVR3. So especially if you ended up getting drives that were not part of our recommended performance list, or you're finding that, yeah, the hard drives are getting old and the reading and writing speed is not keeping up and you need some time before you can swap out those drives, specific storage can really help out the amount of taxation on each drive. For example, if I believe here I've got 2 drives. Okay, I have D and E that I'm recording to. Then under the Schedule tab, I can tell it that cameras 2 through 5 should record to the D drive, and cameras 6 through 14 should only go to the E drive. And that way, instead of trying to support all 7 cameras on every drive, it would only support 3 to 4 cameras. So especially when you start getting a lot of cameras and much larger systems and a lot more drives, this can really help. Instead of having every drive handle the reading and writing of 100 cameras, it can, for example, just handle the reading and writing of maybe 20 cameras across 5 of the drives. So in order to set this up, you want to go ahead and check mark specific storage and select the drive. As you see right now, the only drives that I have available are C and G. So why is that? So if you go into your storage, it's because only C and G are quote-unquote right now available, because D and E are still being used as official drives. So what you can do is you can temporarily, at the beginning, you can check mark your C drive just so that you can set up the other drives, and then go ahead and select those in the specific storage settings for every camera. And remember, once you set it up for one of the cameras, the specific storage settings, you can always click copy and copy just the specific storage settings to a certain group of cameras. And that way it can save you a lot of time from having to go to every single camera and setting that up. And so afterwards, if you do that, make sure when you add a new camera into the system that you go ahead and make sure that you assign it to a specific drive, because you don't want anything ever recording to the C drive. Okay, you can even bump up the reserve space of the C drive really high to make sure that if by accident someone did record to the C drive, it is not going to crash the system because it's barely recording. Note that if you start doing specific storage after you already have filled up, for example, your drives with recordings, or even just have any recordings on the drive, you will lose some of the previous recordings. So make sure that you go ahead and export out the recordings that you need before you set up any specific storage if you already have recording files. Because what happens is, for example, if I suddenly tell D drive to only record cameras 1 through 10, then any footage it had for cameras 11 through 100 officially no longer belong on that drive. So it will start erasing it, all of those recordings, to make room for cameras 1 through 10 and all of their recordings. So again, if you are going to set up specific storage after you already have had some recordings, make sure you export what you need before you set that up. All right, and so just so you guys know, as one of the advanced functions, this is available regardless of the edition that you have. You can come into the user tabs, come into user groups, and we do support Active Directory. So this is where you can go ahead and add your users in, and then from there, on that particular user group, change the permissions accordingly. And if you do need to add more users later, that's totally fine as well. So if you ever need to make sure only certain users within the Active Directory or even within the user groups do not have that mobile client option, you can always tell it to unassign the video push under the users, under that particular user's permissions here. Okay. Last but not least, if you do set up email notifications, make sure that you set up the SMTP server here within the NVR. So you can go ahead and use various servers, make sure you have the right information, and then afterwards you can send a test email. Same thing if you're sending things to the FTP. If you want to change where the snapshots go to, you want to go ahead and click on the export settings and change the path. Same thing with, for example, the overlay settings. If you want the font to be bigger, et cetera, on the snapshots, so on and so forth, that's all done under the export settings here. So we do allow on the NVR3 corporate for customers with the ACTI mobile client to receive cell phone notifications. This is our ANS functionality. So all you have to do is talk to your ACTI sales rep, tell them how many of the phones you are going to be needing notifications for, and they'll be able to get you the right price and part number. And so if you also want to embed Google Maps, all you need to do is to go to developers.google.com and grab the API key from them. And then from there, you'll be able to add in your Google Maps. So last but not least on this server, let's go ahead and go into the playback real quick. So the playback, you guys already know the basic functions in terms of how to search for footage, how to export it. Again, the green lines are indicating motion. You can jump in between motion detection events using the previous and next recording functionality, but they're all various search options that you also have available through the NVR3. So one of it is the event search. So for example, if I just want to look for a certain motion event on this particular camera, I can click on event search, click start. Device is camera 13. And the event, I just want it to look for, let's say, motion. So we can uncheck all the other options and tell it to search. And when it does that, it gives you all the results in thumbnail form. So instead of jumping in between from green mark to green mark, you'll be able to see which ones may be false triggers, which ones the object is way too far away to be worth maybe exporting the video for. But you can go ahead and scroll on through and look for your particular spot. And when you find the event that you were looking for, all you have to do is double-click, and it will automatically jump to that particular date and time on the playback. And then that way you'll be able to go ahead and export your video accordingly. Another way that you can go ahead and let it search for you is if you use the Smart Search. So this takes a little bit longer because it's actually analyzing your footage, so I'm not going to execute that for you, but I will go ahead and show you how to set that up. So if we go into our Smart Search, we click Start. So we want it to be for our E24. Actually, no, let's do our entrance camera. So a lot of times, for example, maybe you drew your motion box over the entire door. But let's say that a particular car disappeared from this parking spot. You can tell the NVR to only analyze for motion in that particular spot. So as long as it was recording the footage, the NVR can actually analyze various motion events and things like that, even if you didn't cover that in the actual motion box. So for example, let's say I just want to know when motion occurred in that area, sensitivity being 50, and what I can do is I can draw my own shape or I can draw a rectangle. So for example, I just want to know when motion occurred in this area. And I can tell it to search and analyze every 5 seconds. Since it's a car, I'd say it'll probably, 30 seconds will be saved, 10 even safer. And let's say I know it happened between 8:30 and 9:30 today, and I can go ahead and tell it to analyze every 10 seconds, export the information, or go ahead and hit search. And it will give me the same thumbnail layout in terms of the results. So that's another way that you can let the NVR do the searching for you instead of scrolling back through, watching hours and hours of footage. Last but not least, we have the bookmark search. So let's say we made a bookmark on the live view page. We can search for it by keyword, by device. I made one earlier today. I think we called it front door, and we also made some notes about trespassing. I can use any word that I typed into the bookmark earlier and click search. And it will automatically, again, give me in thumbnail form all of the results. And if I double-click, it will automatically jump to that particular date and time on that playback bar. So this is a very easy way, instead of having to tell people back and forth where a bookmark is, to just let the NVR search the bookmarks for you based on whatever keyword you saved it as. Let's go ahead and move over to our second server. So these servers are all available to you. You can access it at nvr3.acti.com. You can access it using your ACTI Member Center account and password. So whatever you use to log into the website, and if you don't have one, you can go ahead and register real quick. It's 5 minutes and it's free. So you can go ahead and log in with your email address and whatever password you set up on the website. So this is a demo site for you to use, for you to play with, for you to go ahead and take a look at what are the latest cameras and qualities from ACTI. There are various verticals that we already set up for you if you want to show your customer what the interface can look like for them. So for example, if we scroll down our views here, you'll see that if you had, for example, an education vertical, you could go ahead and click on it, and you can let your customer see that this is what it could look like for them. They could have 2 cameras. They could have an embedded website here. They can have an EMAP, just for them to just have a general idea of what things can look like for them. And so if you click on the intro view here, we do have shortcuts to the various things that we offer on this demo site. So if you're looking at analytics, access control, POS, all of that is demoable and that you can play with here on this site. So I won't go through all of this today, but I just want to show you some of the more advanced functions of the NVR3. So one of it was setting up the analytics of a particular camera. When you do log into the demo site, you only have access to the playback and the live view. Okay, so you're not going to be able to play with any of the setup, but you will be able to use it as a general demo site. So before I log in with setup permissions, this is basically what it could look like if you embedded Google Maps. So you can go ahead, same thing, have various sites set up as shortcuts, and you can double click on them, and it can go ahead and jump in between various sites. So let's talk about how to set up the analytics from the NVR3 itself. So again, this is only available on cameras with embedded analytics. Some cameras, if they don't have analytics but the customer is looking at them, you'll have to look into our analytics servers, which will be separate software, separate hardware should you want a standalone system. But some of the cameras do come with their own analytics already, and you can set it up through the NVR3 instead of having to set it up at the camera. So for example, under event, if you go to camera, you'll see that, for example, our I-42 and I-29, if you go ahead and click on that camera, it does have embedded analytics. So you'll see that it supports line crossing, forbidden area, missing object, so on and so forth, and you can set up the responses accordingly. So the responses will be generally pretty much similar to the other responses that you already have. For example, if there was motion detection in a certain region, but just so you know, there are responses you can do based on that analytic. So if we go ahead and go to that particular camera, setting it up through the NVR is very straightforward. All you have to do is come into the video tab, click on video analytics, click on setup, and you'll see based on whichever one you want to set up, you can go ahead and add it. You can draw your line, for example, if it's line crossing. You can say if this is in or out, for example, and change the timer. So it just really varies on what analytics you want to set up for the camera, but it is all accessible through the NVR. You don't have to set it up, log into every single one. You can just do it from the NVR. Last but not least, once you do start having multiple NVRs, you want to go ahead and start using the CMS software. So we do have a separate webinar for how to use the CMS software that you can find on our website, but I just want to go ahead and show you guys real quick. The interface is very similar to the NVR3. Again, this is a demo site that is available to you and your customers. You can access it at http://cms2.acti.com:443. So again, you want to go ahead and log in with your ACTI member email and password. I'm going to go ahead and log in with the admin credentials so that I can go ahead and show you guys. As you can see, the interface is very similar to the NVR3, so as long as you're a customer and you know how to use the NVR3, you already know how to use the CMS. So you can have, again, Google Maps, you can have e-maps, embedded websites, etc., all your cameras. All the functionalities and the basics in the advanced webinar are the same. It's just instead of adding in the cameras, right, so here on the left you would have cameras. On the CMS, you're adding in NVRs, and under each NVR you would be able to access the cameras. So you'll be able to see all of your NVRs from one place using the CMS interface. And from the CMS interface, if only certain people are allowed to see certain cameras or certain NVRs, you can always restrict those permissions in the same way that you can restrict permissions for cameras in the NVR3. So it's all very customizable. It's very easy to use. And so everything is accessible from here. So again, feel free to play around with it. You'll have live view and playback access. It's all the same interface basically as the NVR3. So this is very, very useful once you start getting multiple NVRs. And so same thing with the TV wall. If you have a lot of monitors, you want to go ahead and use the CMS so that you can control all of the TV monitors, control which cameras are going where, and mix and match cameras from various sites if that's what you guys would like, especially if you're looking at city surveillance, etc. Thanks, guys, for joining the ACTI Advanced webinar today. If you do have further questions, feel free to follow up with your ACTI sales rep or email us at technical.support@acti.com. Thanks, and have a great day.